Well, good evening, Roy.
Good evening, Warren. Although when this is actually going to be premiered tomorrow, which will be Sunday, it'll be probably in the afternoon or in the morning.
That is correct. On right in the middle of our big exciting week, of course, of convention announcements for Los Angeles 1999. So we're actually really pleased to be able to bring on a very special guest tonight to talk about Space Brain and talk about all things looking forward to his appearance in Los Angeles in September. So we'll run a quick little couple of promotions here, and we'll be right back with a very special guest. Roy, did you want to just quickly, of course, talking about Space Brain? We usually just have you read the ITC synopsis.
Yeah, just to kind of give the folks out there the opportunity to surmise what we're going to talk about. So, with that said, Alpha encounters an intangible mass as it heads through space and towards disaster. Whatever the mysterious energy field might be, it possesses a strange and frightening power. And as Warren just indicated, we are going to be doing year 1, episode number 20, Space Brain.
Space Brain. Let's go.
Let's do it.
I cut you off every time. Every time I do that, I'm just a little too quick on the button there, Roy. I'm sorry.
You're fired, Warren. Now, with that said, that's all good. And we are so excited tonight, not only to be talking about Space Brain, but the person who will be talking with us is very well known to Space 1999 fans. And we are very excited to have him on our broadcast tonight for the very first time. Go ahead.
And we have a very special introduction.
Okay. See, I'm not going to cut you off.
Here we go. Welcome.
I don't think any intros are needed after that. Welcome, Mr. Nick Tate, to the show.
Hi, Roy.
Hey, Nick.
Hey, Warren.
How are you doing, my friend?
I'm excellent. Wonderful. Very interesting. Look at some of those pictures there. I didn't know you had them. That last picture, I was with that young bearded young man. You all, of course, know that that's my son, Tom. He is now 45 and got 3 children. Just presented me with my my 4th grandchild, my 3rd granddaughter. Her name is Vivian Tate, and she's absolutely gorgeous. And I'm currently living here. We got knocked out of our homes in the Palisades for these fires. It's been pretty tough. Yeah. So we've come down here to, or up to Ventura, which is about 60 miles north of Los Angeles. And it's a community of boat dwellers and well, all sorts of people do all kinds of things. But I'm very impressed with the boats that are here. Lots of big fishing vessels and pleasure craft that go across to the islands as well. And of course, I love boats, so I'll be doing a bit of that. But our house didn't burn in the fires. My house, strangely enough, out of the 5,600 houses that burnt in the Pacific Palisades around me, there's a handful of homes that didn't burn. And only he up there knows why our house didn't burn. However, we are in a sea of toxic ash, and we're not allowed to live in a house. Might have been better. I shouldn't say this, but my son, sadly, the boy you just saw in the photograph, he lost his house, and he'd only just bought it in the Palisades.
Mm.
So life is kind of cruel at times. However, we are alive, and we're healthy, and we're well, and eventually the insurance will pay up and help us out. But right now, it's been a pretty tough time.
Yeah.
Yeah, we can our hearts go out to everybody involved, Nick, and we were all hoping and praying for you during those few tense weeks, but we're just so relieved that everybody's
Yeah.
okay.
Yes, indeed. And my daughter also last year had a little baby as well. So she was my second granddaughter, and now Vivian's my third granddaughter. And of course, our first grandchild was Liam, and he's now 12,
Wow.
going on 13, and he's already 5'10".
Oh my goodness. Wow.
12 years of age, 5'10".
Wow.
I'm
Well,
going,
congrats.
hi, Liam.
Well,
he's, he's a
congratulations to the
he's a
additions to your family.
whisker above me, and he's very proud of it as well.
Aw.
He's going to be a basketball player.
Yes, he may well be. He's absolutely besotted by soccer because our son Tom was a wonderful soccer player. He was trained for Olympic development here with the AYSO, and even at 45 years of age, he's still playing soccer. It's a great passion with him. And so Liam is one of these extraordinary people who, even though he lives in America, he can tell you every team in Europe that plays soccer and what they scored today or last week, the week after. And he knows who scored what and when and how. And he is just an encyclopedia of international soccer results. I think that bodes well for the possibility of him becoming some kind of statistical wizard with computers and things, because he's very good on a computer too. 12 years of age.
That's
And I
amazing.
can barely turn the thing on.
Well, it sounds like a strong passion for sure, Nick.
Yeah, yes, indeed. So, as you can see, I'm still alive and well, and we all got a bit of a cough from the smoke. There was a lot of smoke involved.
Yeah.
It was like a tornado. The winds were reaching 90-mile-an-hour gusts, and that's what caused the fire. I think they knocked the electric wires down up in the hills of the Palisades, and then all the Australian eucalyptus trees, which were planted to build the railroads here in California. They've grown wild, and they're very incendious. In other words, if a spark gets to them, that eucalyptus oil just goes up like an inferno.
Nice. Yeah.
And then you put a slight breeze on it, and you're getting an added problem. We had 90-mile-an-hour whirling dervish things that were going around and swirling all the burn up into the sky like a tornado and dropping it down on our houses. So a lot of the stuff came into my house through the top windows and my air vents and stuff. And my swimming pool is, it's a toxic swamp. I'm not laughing about it, but what else are you going to do? You don't want to see me cry. But I'm one of many thousands of people that have been knocked out. Hard part is that they have to clear all the land, and that's thousands of burnt and the residue of burnt houses with all the lead and the asbestos and all kinds of heavy metals that are involved in the ash. And of course, our State Farm insurance company are being very, very reticent and very weird about it all, which doesn't bode well. I've been a member of State Farm for 30 years. I've probably bought my house 5 times over with the insurance money I've paid. And but then so many people are in exactly the same boat.
Right.
But so yeah, here we are wanting to talk about science fiction and wonderful things that have all the fans have enjoyed, and I've enjoyed too, because I love the fact that I was in that show. And when I meet fans, it's a when I was working, it was hard to take time off and go to conventions, and I was looking forward to doing all sorts of other things at the time. But now in my graduation years, I'm 82. I didn't ever think I'd get past 70, but here I am. So it's wonderful to see people like yourselves, because you represent very much the typical kind of long-standing aficionados of Space 1999, with your diligence and your intelligence and your loyalty. And any man or woman that had been in those shows about 50 years ago, it was 1973 when we started, and it's now 52 years on from when we first started. I know it didn't go to air in America until 75. So you're celebrating the 25th anniversary, isn't it? Is it 25th?
No, 50th anniversary. Yeah, we're celebrating
Oh,
that.
yeah, because it's
Yeah.
in the year 25. I'm
Yep.
sorry.
No, you're good.
Oh,
25th anniversary of Breakaway.
Yeah. Yeah. Exactly. Exactly.
So hit me with a question.
Well, sure, and listen, and thanks very much again. And one of the things before we went on the air, of course, with Space Brain, you had started to get into some very, very nice stories about actor Shane Rimmer.
Shane Rimmer, what a dear lad. Yeah, our paths crossed many times in London. We were both transplants into England, into the British film industry and television and radio industry. He was a good voice man as well. So he brought the American accent, although, as we've just discussed, he was actually Canadian. But good Canadians can speak like New Yorkers or Texans or anything they choose to. And Shane was one of those very talented people. Hell of a nice guy, too. It wasn't just Space 1999 that I worked on with him. I came across him so many other times at the BBC and ITC and Granada. We were working actors in London, you know, and there was a club, Shaftesbury Avenue, which was for the actors, and it was called Jerry's Bar, and it actually was a dive, but we all loved it. We'd go down there and didn't have to pretend to be, didn't have to put up with. Not that I mind putting up with people stopping me in the street and saying, "Oh, I love your work," or whatever it is, whatever questions they've got. But if you go to Jerry's Bar, you don't do that, because we're all professional actors and we all respect and know each other's work for the most part. I remember I met a guy when I went to India. He was uh, a, a sultan, or he was a very, very wealthy young man. He was in his mid-20s, and I think he was the son of a sheik or sheikh. And he was sitting on the airplane near me, and we got talking. And he said to me as we flew into Bombay, he said, "Nick, where are you staying?" And I said, "I'm at the President Hotel." He said, "Oh, I want to get into the Taj Mahal." And I said, "That would be nice." He said, "I'll see if I can get you seats too." Well, he wasn't able to do it, but even though he had a lot of money and a lot of pull, but he had a suitcase with him, apart from his own clothing suitcase. This was a very large briefcase. And he said to me, I have to go up to New Delhi tomorrow. I've got to meet a lot of people. He was recruiting labor to take them back to work for him in Saudi Arabia.
Okay.
And he said he didn't want to leave this particular suitcase in his hotel room, and would I look after it for him? And Hazel was saying to me, don't do that. Might have drugs in it. There's all sorts of things, and we could be murdered. And so I said, no, look, I really think it's okay. I felt that the guy was very genuine. So we looked after his briefcase. And when he came back, about 4 days later, he opened it up and showed me what was in it. It had hundreds of thousands of American dollars.
Wow.
Stacked up like you see in the movies, all in this suitcase. He was giving it to the people right there and then. He would pay them for a year's work and then get them a visa and take them to Saudi Arabia to work their indentured work. But he would have to pay them in India so they could give the money to the family.
Right.
And it was one of those little adventures in life. I thought, I didn't know anybody that had that kind of money in those days. It was staggering. So he said to me when we then got on the plane and went back to England, Nick, he said, I must see you in England. He said, I live in Bristol. I said, you do? And he said, I thought you were going back to Saudi. He said, no. He said, I'm in Bristol University. And I'm getting my doctor's degree in whatever it was he was doing. I forget now. And he said, I want to see you. So we swapped phone numbers and stuff. And afterwards, Hazel breathed a sigh of relief because she was always very wary of him. So about a month later, I get a phone call in London. He says, Nick, I'm in London today. He said, I want to see you and take you out to dinner. And I said, oh, that's very kind of you. I'm just going down to Jerry's bar. What is Jerry's bar? I said, oh, it's an actor's bar. An actor's bar? Oh, I want to come. So I thought, oh, God, you're not supposed to bring guests in because they'll go, oh, will you sign autographs for me? And he just thought money could buy anything,
Mm.
So I took him to Jerry's bar and he was beside himself with joy because I'll tell you who was there. You remember Cooper, the very funny British comic? He used to pretend he was a magician that would get everything wrong all the time. He wore a fez on his head. And
Yeah.
he'd always say, and then it's just like that. Well, not like that, but like that. He'd always get all his tricks wrong. He was a very funny guy. Billy Cooper? No one doing. Anyway, he was at the Jerry's bar a lot. And the night that we saw him there, he was having an argument with a woman that was with him. And it was clear that she was more than just his secretary.
Mm-hmm.
And he was saying, oh, shut up, woman. Don't embarrass me. And she was going, no, but you promised me. All this was going on. And then suddenly, I told you. And oh my God, he hit her.
Oh, my goodness.
So the restaurant staff raced over and grabbed him, and she was crying and took them out the back room somewhere. It was just one of those. I suppose I shouldn't have told you that story, but it's real.
I just used the power of Google. Tommy Cooper?
Tommy Cooper.
There you go.
He was a funny comic, man. Very funny guy.
Oh, my
And you
goodness.
do this, and then it's just like that. Oh, well, not like that. No, not like that. No, not like that.
So this bar was where Shane would have been hanging out then when you first met?
Shaftesbury Avenue. Yeah.
Yeah.
Right in the middle
Wow.
of all the theaters. So many theaters on Shaftesbury Avenue. Just up from Piccadilly Circus. And you go downstairs, and then there was a door, and you'd knock on the door. There he is. There's Shane Rimmer. And a little slot would open up, and they look at me, and I'd say, it's Nick. And they go, yeah. The slide would go back. The door would open, and you go in. People from the street could not get in there, You had to be invited. So, as I said, my sheik was very impressed that I got him into the Jerry's bar. He wanted to join, and he said he would give them, how much is it to join? And I said, well, it's a couple of £100, but no, you can't join. You have to be. No, what, a couple of hundred? What, a couple of 100,000? That's a bit expensive, but I'll pay it. And I said, no, not a couple of 100,000. It's just a couple of £100. Well, I'll
Oh
pay
my
it.
God.
I said, no, you've got to be an actor. You can't get in. He really wanted to become a member of the club.
Oh, that's so funny. It's
I
like
lost
something out of a
contact
movie.
with him. I went back to Australia.
Uh,
But let's talk about the show.
Yeah, well, one of the on that Shane Rimmer thought the other guest star in the episode Space Brain. We all had the pleasure of meeting for the first time in London last year. Carla Romanelli. Do you remember meeting Carla?
Oh, yes.
Wasn't
She
she
was an
lovely?
Italian actress.
Yes.
Yes, a lovely woman. And yeah, I saw her. Where was that? Was that in Calgary?
It was in London last year. Yeah,
London. Yes.
yeah, yeah,
Yeah, yeah.
yeah. She came.
She
She came with.
she was she was very, very beautiful, as a lot of Italian women are. I don't really know very much about her career, but I know that she was wonderful to work with at the time and very friendly, and we fell into each other's arms, having not seen each other for 49 years.
that's crazy. That's yeah. It doesn't seem like it could be that long too, because when we watch these episodes are so ingrained in us, and just watching them over and over again. But that was one of the pleasures of the convention last year, though, was just it was almost like a family reuniting, and with a lot of folks that had not been together in such a long time,
Yes,
because
yes. So it is very lovely, and I'm looking forward to this year as well. September, right?
Yeah,
12,
you bet.
13, 14, is it?
yes,
You got it.
Yes,
You got it.
in London.
Yeah.
Wonder why I remember those dates.
Yeah, I don't know. There's something about
Yeah,
that, eh?
how about that?
Well, we're really excited,
That will be
and of course.
my,
Oh, sorry. Go ahead.
incidentally, it will be my um, 49th wedding anniversary.
oh wow,
I was married in 1977, and in September. And of course, we'd finished Space, but Hazel and I were together during the. I didn't know when I did the first series of Space, 1999, but after I met her during the break,
Hmm.
and we got together seriously all throughout that second series, and then we got married, 77.
Nice, nice. I think I recall you saying that you met Hazel at a big shindig or a party somewhere, maybe an award ceremony.
No,
No?
you are sort of right. It was a party.
Okay.
I had just had a party in my house with a lot of actors that came, and I was getting very gnarled about the. Well, guess I was very lucky. I was in a television series, Space 1999. It was very not wildly popular, but it was very popular amongst the people that I knew. And so I'd meet lots of actresses that had either been on the show or who wanted to be on the show or just kind of wanted to be seen with an actor that was in the show. And I was getting a little jack of the fact that a lot of people will look at you when you're an actor and I don't know what they're seeing. You know, you see that look in their eyes and you want to go, hey, I'm just an ordinary human being, you know. But they're going, oh, and then oh, it's so wonderful to meet you. And I thought, well, you know, I wanted to just meet a really down to earth girl. I didn't want to marry. I wasn't married. I didn't want to marry an actress, and I was fed up with what I considered to be people that couldn't see the real me. They were just seeing Alan Carter
yeah,
or whatever other character they'd seen me in. And I guess it must happen to lots of actors, you know, that their public persona is something that people thinks is real.
mhm.
Whereas it could be, you know, I spoke people like John Wayne and those kind of actors who really are very much what they appear to be on camera. But I don't really think I'm much like the characters that I play. but if there was ever a character that is rather like me, it was Ellen Carter, because when I was brought onto the show, as I think most of the people that know about Space 19, I wasn't going to be in the show. I was just going to be playing a pilot that died, and they suddenly decided at the last minute, when they lost the Italian actor that was going to be playing Alphonse Catani, the captain of the Eagle pilots. Suddenly the old proverbial hit the fan. Who are we going to use? And because I was playing a pilot that was going to die in the first episode, and because Lee Katzin had decided that he was going to take 7 weeks to make the first episode, had he not taken that time, they never would have had time to explore the other actors in the show. Because what Lee did for the first episode, the pilot episode, he workshopped it a lot. In fact, more often than not, when television series start, they will do 2 or 3 episodes, and by the time they get to the third episode, they then make the pilot. Because the pilot has to be really good, and everybody has to be very relaxed to know exactly who they are in the show. And if you're playing a pilot and you've never been a pilot in anything, or you're speaking with a French accent and you haven't really gotten used to doing that yet, they don't want to make the pilot be the first episode. They'll let you do the second and the third episodes, and then go back and do the first episode, in order that everybody is very familiar with what it is that they're doing and feeling comfortable.
Mhm.
And Lee got around that by workshopping all kinds of possible scenarios for the show, and with disaster explosions going off, and people racing to get in the Eagle, or my character, and so on, and building relationships with Martin Landau, because he was the boss of the whole thing. And I very fortunately, Martin took a bit of a liking to me, and he said, "It's a shame your character's going to be killed." And I said, "Yeah, I agree with you." But I had no idea that they would suddenly offer me the role, because that doesn't usually happen in life, you know. But I wanted it to happen, so maybe that's why I did. I don't know. Who knows? But
What you just brought up though, Nick, too, about, as an actor, you're playing different roles, you're doing different types of portrayals, and you're indicating how when you met Hazel, I think this is the direction you were going in, how she was seeing you just for the person that you were, but maybe not as the characters or the parts that you had played in the different shows that you had been
Hazel had
in.
never seen me in anything.
So that was like she was meeting the real deal. So it's all the other stuff would be like a bonus, because she would find out later that you had
Yeah,
done these different roles
but
and
but
different personas.
but I can assure you, it didn't impress her one
Right.
iota.
Yeah.
I was driving a little Honda Celica or something in the beginning of the first series, but by the time the second series came around, I lashed out and I bought myself a brand new Datsun 240Z. In those days, it was the first of that group of Datsuns, and it was a wonderful vehicle,
Mm.
and I loved it. And it looked like a rocket ship, and it was I used to call it the Eagle. I was in the show, and I would drive this thing to and from the studios, and I was very impressed and proud of myself that I had this car. And so when I met Hazel, and I told her that night, I said I would drive her home. We went out to get in the car, and she walked right past it, and I said, "This is the car here." And she went, "Oh, what is that?" And I said, "Well, it's a Datsun 240Z." And I drove it a little bit too fast, and that did not impress her at all. She didn't like it, and she said she thought that I was a bit too flash for her, you know. And I liked the fact that she hadn't got a clue
Yeah.
who I was. She couldn't see me as an actor. She'd never seen me in anything. And she certainly hadn't seen the first series of Space 1999, which had just played in London when I got the second series. And I met her some weeks before I landed the second series. And I told her I was going to do this science fiction series, Space 1999. she said, "Oh, is it on the BBC?" And I said, "No, it's with ITC." And that also put her off because she was classical music, um, been to all the best schools. She was very much a lover of classical music and ballet and theater. I mean, I changed all that in her life because I didn't do any of that. I was a bit of a drongo. I was into sport and fun theater and films. I wasn't into the classics, although I had done Shakespeare. So Hazel was not impressed with me at all, and she liked me, but I don't think she thought that I was marriage material. And it just suddenly dawned on me one day: this is the person that I have to have, because she doesn't have rose-colored glasses on. She's not seeing me as the actor.
Yeah.
I'm just this man who she's never seen in her life before, and she didn't know any Australians either. But I think we courted for about 18 months, and then one day we did start to live together, as a lot of people do. We just had some friends to dinner, and it was a lovely dinner. And when they left, we were doing the washing up, and Hazel paused for a minute to peel a banana that she was eating. And she put this banana in her mouth, and there I was with the soap dripping off my hands. I wasn't even wearing washing up gloves to do the washing up. It was such domestic ordinariness. And she's got this banana in her mouth, and I said, "Will you marry me?" She went, "Oh, what?" Yeah, I'm clearly not a romantic, right? I didn't have a ring. I hadn't planned on asking her. I just suddenly dawned on me: what the hell am I doing? This woman is wonderful. This is who I'm meant to be. I got down on my hands and knees after my mum died, and I said to God, "Will you stop sending me all these actresses? I don't want to marry an actress. I said I wanted to marry an uncomplicated farm girl." Well, I didn't know any uncomplicated farm girls, but Hazel was about as close as I could ever get to it, and she still is. She's very uncomplicated, and must be an angel to put up with me for 50 years.
Wow. Well, that's a true testament, because essentially, I think what you're saying, Nick, is that she was starstruck by Nick Tate, not by Alan Carter, right?
I don't know about that, mate. It was very kind to say that. I just think we were a man and a woman that liked each other a lot,
Right.
and it was.
Connected.
I felt very uncomfortable about the fact that I was falling for this girl, because I always thought that I would marry some sort of starry actress, but in the end, I didn't really like any of the starry actresses I knew. I mean, I liked them. No, it's not true. I did like them, but I didn't want to marry them because they had so many problems, and it was all about looking at themselves in the mirror all the time, and what effect are they having on a room when they're in a room, instead of just getting on with life.
Substance, a lot of
Yeah.
yeah.
Hazel, even for a while, I remember at one point in time, she went around our house with white stuff. She put it on all the mirrors because she didn't want to look in any mirrors.
Wow.
Really?
Yeah, yeah. Right in the middle, so that she could see the clothes she was wearing, but as far as her face was concerned, she wasn't interested in. She doesn't spend time doing what a lot of other women do with so much of the lipstick goes boom, or practically never any. I don't even like her wearing lipstick, quite frankly. I don't mean, it's all right on some people, but she's just a good old natural friend.
That's really nice. And you're coming. So you're literally coming up on your 50 years of when your courtship. Then when it started. Then this year, I would, right, in regards to that.
That's exactly right.
Yeah.
It's exactly right. I met her at 8:15 on the 28th of November, 1975.
Wow.
How do I know the date so well and the time so well? I had had a party myself in my apartment the day before, and there was a lot of people there, and everybody got very drunk. And my friend who knew Hazel, and he would go and visit his cousin, an actress called Marilyn Smithick, and she lived in um, Kensington Gardens, which was a lovely area of London, just not far from the palace. And she was a very connected girl. She was part of the Smithick fortune. They were brewers, and they made beer, and they were bought out by Guinness. And so she had this incredible dowry where she was worth probably millions of dollars. I don't know at the time. But Marilyn had this lovely apartment in Kensington Gardens. And this was a time when Ireland and England were having terrible problems, and they were placing bombs in London.
Wow.
And an Italian restaurant that we used to go and eat in Kensington Gardens got blown up one day. Well, actually, wasn't entirely blown up. They put a bomb in the entrance to the lobby, and I think I'm pretty sure 2 or 3 people actually died, and we had eaten in that restaurant only a couple of days before. So the police came to our apartment in Kensington Gardens and said, since it was right across the road from just around the corner, but very close, they said they wanted to set up a station, a position where they could watch and run from there. And Marilyn fortunately had 2 floors. The police took over the first floor, and the girls were upstairs. And that's where I asked Hazel to marry me, in that apartment. But Marilyn Smithick was an actress, and as I said, she was the heir to the Smithick fortune, and she drank way too much. Sadly, that was kind of like it was a professional hazard for her. And I always remember that I wasn't really a very big drinker. I never have been in my life. My dad was an alcoholic, and my grandparents and grandfather was an alcoholic. I didn't want to go down that road, and I was too interested in staying fit, So when I had friends that would get very drunk, I didn't want to be around them, because it didn't strike me as a vibe that I wanted to know about. Anyway, Marilyn was a roommate of Hazel's. Well, actually, Hazel was a roommate of Marilyn's, because Marilyn owned this apartment, and it had 3 bedrooms. And I think they had like 5 girls living there. And Hazel was one of them. And her cousin, Ed Pegg, had been asked by Marilyn to bring along young men to the household, because she wanted her girlfriends to meet handsome young actors or whoever Ed knew, because Ed was an actor. And at my party the night before, he said to me, "Oh, Nick, I've asked you a couple of weeks ago to come around and meet Marilyn's girls that live in the apartment." I said, I don't really want to do that, man. And he said, no, you look, it's great. She's really nice, and some of her flatmates are very sweet, so you should come. So when he came to my party, as he was leaving at midnight, he said to me, "Don't forget Marilyn's party tomorrow." And I went, "Oh, Ed, I don't know about that, mate." He said, "No, I'll come and pick you up. We got to be there at 8:00. So I totally forgot about it. We had this long party, and eventually I managed to get everybody to go home at about 4:00 in the morning. And I went to bed somewhere. I fell asleep on a sofa, I think. And I got up at about midday, and I started cleaning up my apartment. And I was cleaning, and I was cleaning, and I was smelling, and I hadn't showered or shaved or anything. And at 7:30, my doorbell goes, and I'm thinking, "Oh, I want to go to bed now. recognize that. And there's Ed. He's going, "What are you doing? You coming to the party with me?" And I went, "No. I don't want to go to any party now." And he said, "No, I promised Marilyn that you're going to come with me." And I said, "Oh, man, I don't want to." He grabbed hold of me. It was bigger than I am. And he took me to the shower and he said, "Shower. You're going to like it. Beautiful girls." Oh, I said, "All right." So I get in the shower, I shaved, and we go around to the apartment, and they're all playing backgammon. It's not a party at all. It's a very... Have I told you guys this story?
Oh,
They're all playing backgammon, and all the girls that lived in the apartment were playing, and there were some very stiff upper lip sort of English lawyers, and everybody was in pinstripe suits and things. It was so twee that I couldn't focus at all. I didn't want to be there. And so I like backgammon, but I like backgammon to actually gamble with, not just play it like checkerboards,
Right.
So I was not enjoying myself, and I didn't fancy any of the women, and Ed was over in the corner talking to somebody else. So I left, and it was about 8:15 at night, and I went down the stairs, and in the door came Hazel wearing a riding hat and a whip and everything. Oh, hang on, I got a phone call coming in.
Yeah, that's fine.
Just going to tell.
that's
This
okay.
is from Australia. I've
Yeah.
just
Yep.
got to get him and tell him something. All right.
Yeah, no worries. Absolutely.
You take it. Yeah.
Yep.
Okay. Yeah. It was perfect. Okay. Yeah. So
I was just going to interject that about the suit. See, that's an inside joke between Warren and me about the attire for tonight.
yeah.
That was
Point taken. Point taken.
anyway. It's always a pleasure talking with Nick. I mean,
That's for sure.
it's just it's not only about Space 1999, but it's about everything else, which is great, and these behind the scenes stories. So we're
And he's the greatest person to interview, because all you got to do is ask him one question, and he's away to the races.
yeah, no, it's always a pleasure. It's always a pleasure. So yeah, no, very, very cool.
Well, let's take a couple of minutes and just maybe touch on a couple other points on Space Brain. Of course, and when Nick comes back, we do want to ask him something quite specific. But
Yeah, and I'll even put that out there. So this episode of Space 1999, I believe there were two episodes. This episode and The Last Enemy were shelved, I'll say, by Jerry Anderson because there were issues in regards to the way the story was going, and potentially having to have rewrites done, and that way would there be a better form of flow. Now, The Last Enemy was the 18th episode. The next episode after that was The Troubled Spirit, which was the last one we had discussed several weeks ago. And then we came to Space Brain. Now, with Space Brain, this was actually shot film principal photography in December, from December 5th to December 19th of 1974. But Jerry Anderson decided to put it on hold, and additional sequences were filmed in February of 1975. So there was almost like a 2-month gap. And one of the things about this episode that's very unique is that the very last filming of series 1 was done for this episode, even though the Testament of Arcadia was the last episode that was produced.
the
This
pickups.
was actually the last one that was actually filmed, and it was the epilogue sequence with at the end of the episode where they're talking about Kelly dying. Helen is very upset, feeling that she abandoned Kelly. Koenig is talking about about the space brain and how it was destroyed, and how this the area of space, the solar system, the planets potentially in that sector depended upon it, and what they lost. That was actually the last scene that was filmed for the series. And again, that was in February 28th of 1975, which we just literally just passed about a month and a half ago. So just wanted to put that tidbit out there.
Yeah, no, for sure. I have and going back, I have a couple of very distinct recollections of watching this live. The first time in Canada, and it, I think this is, to my day, it's one of my favorites. It's a guilty pleasure.
Mhm.
Um, it introduced um, so many different ideas and concepts, and just the even the pre credit sequence it's I think one of the longest ones they did. Correct me if
Yep.
I'm wrong.
No, I think it
Uh,
is the longest actually.
yeah,
Yep.
it just that whole idea of the sort of Egyptian style hieroglyphics that show up on the screens and monitors, and everybody's trying to run around and figure out what's being said, and what they're trying to communicate. Um, the Other thing I wanted to bring up is that, and sort of in relation to that, Charlie Crichton, of course, directed the episode,
Yep.
and I've always admired his directorial style here when it comes to the use of mirrors and reflections,
Mm.
with a lot of those hieroglyphs and things being projected backwards on glass, say between medical and where Koenig is, and just really brilliant use of photography there.
No, excellent point because you see the hieroglyphics
And
as far
that
as
one
the
picture
screen right there. Yep.
I've seen, yeah, 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 really well done.
And also when Koenig is in the medical center, there when
Yeah,
it's showing on the screen, there's actually a reflection that takes place too with that.
yeah,
It's very very well done. I mean he was a prolific director, and also he was a director that had been a part of the series many times over. So he was very utilized, and then of course he went on to do his movie uh, won an Academy Award, I believe, too. He won an Academy Award for what's escaping me at the moment.
Fish called Wanda.
Yes, A Fish Called Wanda. Thank you very
Yeah,
much. Yeah.
yeah,
Yeah. But yeah, so with that, there's a lot to this episode, but also, and we're very Warren and I, we were very excited about talking about some of the details. If you're a fan of the series, which of course that's why you're tuning into this, as many of you know, there's a lot of promotional photography that was utilized, especially on the for the folks out there that had the laser discs. If you have the novelization, there's photographs of scenes that are not taking place or shown in the actual episode. And what immediately comes to mind is, and of course, if you have the Blu-ray, there's actually commentary that is also it's text commentary that talks about these deleted scenes. And one of them, the main one or main scenes, is in the Eagle, where there is photography of Alan and Kelly, and Kelly being in the cockpit. He's trying to steer the Eagle and into, well, we don't know what he's trying to do, but obviously he's trying to go into the space brain. But also there's like a fight sequence taking place in the command module. We also see a sequence in the passenger module where Carter is hovering over Kelly, trying to see if he's okay. And then what happens is Kelly gets up, and just as Warren was just putting that scene on, and Kelly's trying to get away from Alan, and he goes into the cockpit of the Eagle, and he takes the controls. They're trying to fight, and Carter's trying to stop Kelly, and Kelly overpowers Carter, and he pushes him out of the way. And so supposedly the dialogue, which I've actually seen, is Carter saying, "Okay, we'll have it your way, Kelly." And then what he does is he goes and gets a stun gun, and to overpower him, he stuns him. That way, the Eagle will not go into the space brain. So there is that direction that this episode was going to go in originally, as it was photographed in December of 1974. But again, as we were saying, this was shelved because Jerry Anderson wanted to make changes. And one of the interesting things is Kelly goes out on the spacewalk, but it's not to do a visual as Koenig had described in the televised portion of the episode that we see as the viewer, but he's going out into space to collect samples of whatever it is that potentially had crushed Eagle One, Wayland's Eagle as it's referred. And what happens is when he's out in space and he's trying to collect these samples, he's being choked and strangled, not crushed, but he's being choked by these flakes that are forming around him. And this is why Alan goes out to try to bring him in. And then when he does, he gets him back into the Eagle, and he's kind of in a comatose state, as we saw in those photographs that Warren just put up on the screen. And then everything unravels. So there was a change that was done in regards to the script as far as Kelly, the reason for Kelly going out. And that whole sequence, unfortunately, was deleted. And I've been saying over the years that I keep hoping, because this was filmed, but I keep hoping it will surface somewhere in the vaults of, ITV, that, someone overlooked it, and it's just waiting to be discovered. And that way we'll be able to, view it. And I was really hoping that this was going to happen. And up to now, it hasn't, but we've been very fortunate to have these still photographies. There's some other things that were changed in regards to the script, but I'm going to come up for air so Warren can interject.
Well, thank you for that. And that the timing worked out really well with that, with the photos. The one thing that I wanted to bring up now, Roy, you're very, very on the spot each week with reading an episodic synopsis from ITC. But what I have to show everybody here, this is a little different because in the Martin Landau documents that we got our hands on here a couple years back, we found a document, I'll call it, or a press junket that was sort of sent out by ITC with a series of longer synopsis, and they're about a page and a half each for each episode, and they were all sort of bundled together, packaged together. And I just want to bring up the one for Space Brain because I focused in on that right away as soon as I found this, and sure enough, give me 1 second here. We found all of these changes. That is not it. Okay. That is not it. Boy, technology, Roy.
I know how that is. See, I paused too soon, Warren.
Where did it
But
go? I lost it, but it was a longer synopsis that actually described the scene, and it was original press release from ITC. I just thought it would have been neat to bring up.
No, definitely, and that's something that we can showcase at another time. So no, thanks for trying to bring that up. But no, and that's what's really interesting though, because the story potentially was going to go in a different direction with that. And the other thing too is then, it looks like we may have lost Nick. Yeah, I'm sure he'll try to come on.
So the Space Brain is essentially causing all these technical issues tonight.
Yeah, I think so. I think that's part of it. So yeah, Warren, I'm going to actually have to place you on. I'm going to bow out for 1 minute, and I will return. Okay, and I'm going to leave you. I've never done this before, but I'm going to have to do it now.
Okay, I think I'll be okay. I can run the show solo.
Okay, I have no doubt.
No problem. No problem. Well, hello and welcome everyone to Space 1999. This episode. The joy. Oh, hang on. I think we got somebody back here. That wasn't. I didn't have to go solo that long. Hi, Nick.
Hey.
We lost Roy in the interim.
What? Oh, really?
He just had to step away. I think for a phone call too, but he'll be right back.
Okay. Yeah.
We were just talking a little more about the episode, and thanks for coming on back. You had a call from Australia, but glad you could make it back. Hope everything's okay.
Yeah, no, it's good. I'm just doing a little job for Australia, and I'm recording it in a studio here in Ventura. It's a music studio here, and I went and chatted with the guys yesterday, getting it all set up because the timing's really weird. It's early in the morning in Australia, it's late in the afternoon here.
Yes. Trying
to get people that are still at their peak recording abilities and or receptivity.
Right. And boy, and that's a shame. I mean, speaking about, you had a full facility at your house, like a little mini recording studio.
Yeah, I do.
I
do. And it's there. I was in the house only a week ago looking at all that stuff and thinking, I wonder if this is how much toxicity is in here.
Yeah.
because the lead that fell out of the sky and all the various chemicals, the heavy metals and so forth, mercury, and they can be very dangerous. And the lead levels are quite disturbing in certain parts of the house and hardly at all in other parts of the house. So, because my house didn't actually burn, I'm being showered with stuff that was all swirling around. Over 6,000 houses burnt and were incinerated, and with these whirling winds around us all. And they blew open my French doors, and it all came into my house. And so, how do you remediate it? You know, that's the big $64 question.
Right.
But anyway, I'm going to be doing this voiceover for Australia, but I'm doing it in a studio down here in Ventura on Monday.
Good for you.
Whoops.
That's great. Oh, his phone is ringing again, I think.
It's all good. Yeah, and I had to take a quick break. I mean, ironically enough, that's the first time I've actually ever done that. And
Yeah.
I'm going to give the shameless plug to the show, Roy's Tie-Dye Sci-Fi Corner, when I interviewed Nick, which was the longest interview I ever did, 4 hours and 48 minutes, and I did not break once. Although I did have kidney stones, I think, the following week, and I wondered why. But yeah, true story though. 4 hours.
Good fun. It was like a revolving door, because then you dropped off, and then it was just me, and then I was talking to myself, and then boom, Nick, there he was. So
there you
like
go.
within seconds. So it all worked out.
Yep, the space brain knew. But yeah, in regards, just going back before Nick jumps back on, just to interject some comments about the so there was new footage that was actually shot for this that took place in February of '75. Just to give our viewers just some information, new sequences. So the new footage, one of them was when Bergman is demonstrating how the foam, as we call it, was, or actually the material that was on the on the Eagle, was starting to revert back. And he even makes the comment to Koenig. He says, this foam, as you call it, could essentially crush almost anything. That was one of the new scenes that was filmed. Another one is when Koenig is giving his speech in main mission, and he's saying, "Attention, all sections Alpha," and he's saying, we're getting ready to go through the space brain, and we're taking all these precautions and hoping that they're going to survive. That was a new sequence that was filmed. And then, of course, the epilogue that that I mentioned earlier, that was also a new sequence that was filmed. They also had to redo some things in main mission as well. With now that whole sequence, Carlo Romanelli did not come back to the UK
For the reshoots.
So they actually had an actress that was positioned, if you see her in the background, but it was not her. So they were very careful with that. It was careful editing, but they had to do some kind of reshoot, and she wasn't there for that. So I thought that was pretty interesting as well too.
Yeah, I noticed that. It was you mentioned the merchandising on this episode, and there's one image that I think was on the trading card set that I just loved as a kid. I think it was similar to that.
Similar, yeah. It was on those Dunruss cards, and
yeah.
I used to know the numbers of those cards.
42.
I was going to say 42. I was actually going to say 32 or 42. Is it 42?
I'm sure it's 42.
Yeah, I think it's 42. Yep.
I love this shot just because this was a prime example of how expansive and huge the sets were.
Yeah.
Right. And you even picked that up on looking at that little trading card. That shot in particular, similar to the shot in the Donruss card set from the nuclear generating area.
Yes.
You got this huge sense of scale from a tiny little image, and it's just
vast. Yes. Yeah. No, I totally agree. And that's what I loved. I mean, again, I don't want to go down this rabbit hole, but I always felt with the year one episodes, Alpha seemed so vast. It just seemed, it really felt to me like it was a a base, a large base.
Living, breathing
Yes.
society, and yeah, yeah.
Now, part of it, I mean, especially when you watch the opening episode, Breakaway, everything is just so functional and operational, and there's just so many things that are going on. Again, I love the year. There are year two episodes. I am a huge fan of certain year two episodes. I enjoy year two. I prefer overall year one, but when it comes to year two, there are episodes they're favorites of mine. I very much like them. I don't like to compare the two seasons because there's so much comparison, and it's, to me, it's Space 1999, and I mean we could devote an entire episode of talking about it in a very civilized manner, which we'll probably do at the convention. We were going to actually try to do this in the London 1999, but we'll do this in California, in Los Angeles. But with that said, I just went off on a tangent and I just digressed. To your point, it just was amazing with what they did. The nuclear generating area, even in Force of Life, and then also hydroponics that we got to see
Hydroponics, the
in
solarium,
the
right? We saw all
solarium.
these different areas, and it just added to the realism of the entire base. I think
Yeah.
is where you're going. Whereas in year two, we've talked about this, unfortunately, and especially after you see the blueprint in the
That's
making.
what that's what crushed me, because anytime I watch the episode, anytime they're in a certain area, even if they're claiming it's a specific area, I'm going to the Making of Space 1999, which is right back on the back shelf up there, and I'm going to that really cool schematic that I saw for the very first time when I was like 11 years old, and I thought, this is the greatest thing, and it was, because it's like, oh my god, you got the whole base here, you have the sets. It was, but it destroyed the reality for me, unfortunately, to your point, on a certain level. So anytime I'm like they're in one area, I know it's a redress of another. I know if they're trying to do the different corridors and they're saying that they're on a different level, I'm like, no, they're not. They're just right down the corridor. It didn't happen in year one, but part of the reason it didn't happen in year one is because the only really the two standing sets, the main one was Main Mission, and then of course you had the Eagle, and as our friend uh, David Hirsch has indicated, in regards to the Eagle, they would move it to different areas at different times. However, with that said, there would be different sets, different positionings. So I believe the illusion of everything really allowed your mind to take you to those different areas. But with that said, Nick has just returned. Hey, Nick.
Yeah, I don't know how this thing is popping in and out. Somebody keeps trying to call me, and it knocks me off your
That's okay.
conversation.
No,
But
we're fine.
I'm back with you.
Yeah.
No, we're happy to have you back. We were just talking about some of the details of the episode, Space Brain, Nick. And we do Warren and I do have a question, and we totally understand. I mean, there's you
It's
were
50
part of
years.
it's 50. I didn't want to say it was 50 years, but it is 50 years, and there was a lot done. There was a scene that was filmed for this specific episode with you and Shane Rimmer taking place. I'm just curious if you have any recollections of it. What happened was it was deleted because Jerry Anderson decided that he wanted to retool the episode. So this specific episode, the principal photography, most of it was done in December of '74. But then what he did was he did additional scenes in February of '75 just to kind of tweak the script a little bit. My question to you, Nick, is do you have a recollection of these scenes that Warren's going to put up on the screen showing you and Shane Rimmer together? And again,
Well, and it's okay, but maybe to jog Nick's memory, do you recall having a fight scene with Shane Rimmer?
Yeah.
I've seen. I remember photographs of him with his hand on my face.
Yeah.
And no, I don't have a full recollection of this. I don't know that it ever made it into the episode.
It didn't. They filmed it. It was filmed, but then what happened was it was cut, and then they went in a different direction with the story.
Can I ask you a question? Was it? You said Charlie Crichton did the pickups. Was Charlie Crichton the director of the first? So it was his show that he was having to edit into, was it?
Yes.
Because there were a couple of episodes that happened in the second series when Freddie Freiberger was running out of ideas, and he tried to finish off the show quickly, and he shot the last 8 episodes at the pace of the last 4. So we were doing one on stage L, the other one on stage M, L and M. And Martin would have a larger role in one episode, and Barbara would have a larger role in the other, but they always appeared in both episodes. But for those 8 episodes, I was only in 4 of those, as indeed I believe Tony Anholt was only in 4 of the others. They divided us up. And one of the directors they used had promised that he could write a script if they let him write it and direct it that could be shot in 6 days.
Wow.
Nobody had ever done that. And so they said, well, go for it. And he did, and it was a schmozzle. And so then they couldn't put it together properly. So then they had to, I don't know if he came back and did it, but then we had to shoot another 2 days of stuff to try and fix it, because it's in the show. And I was thinking that might be where Charlie Crichton came in and put in additional material.
Gotcha.
I don't know.
Yeah, we were just curious about that.
That's a long time ago. I think what you're referring to in year 2 were the double up episodes.
Yes, the double up episodes. It's exactly what I'm referring to.
Yeah,
they were the last 8 episodes that we shot.
That's right.
2 at a time.
Everything was under a time constraint. Yeah.
Yeah, in fact, the one episode that you did with Jill Townsend and Lee Montag, if I'm pronouncing it, he just passed away too. Montaigne. Lee Montaigne just passed away at, I think he was like 96 years of age, and he just passed away last week. But Jill Townsend was like your love interest in the episode Dorzak. While that was being filmed, the other episode that was being done was
Devil's Planet.
Devil's Planet, yeah, with the and Martin was only in that episode. I think Barbara was only in like in a flashback sequence, if I remember correctly.
In order to get their money for the entire episode, they had to appear in it somewhere, even if it was only a couple of lines. But Tony and I didn't even get to appear in those 4 episodes, which was wrong of them, because the guarantee was that we would do them all. But it was all falling apart by then.
Mm.
Yeah. Well, listen, and the other, speaking of Charlie Crichton, I mean, I know there's been a famous story down through the years at fan events and gatherings, of course, just talking about old Charlie having to raise his voice at one point during the filming of Space Brain with all the foam coming in. Remember, Nick?
Yes. And because the foam was being manufactured by big sort of windmill type things, and it made a lot of noise and very loud. And so when he'd done what he wanted to do, he finished filming, and he was screaming out, "Cut, cut." Nobody could hear him. So he ran forward to yell at the actors, Martin, because I know that Barbara had voiced some concern that she didn't want to be in the foam very long. She thought that it might affect her, and it probably would have. So Charlie went running in to try and make everybody understand that the scene was over, and he was yelling out, "Cut." And of course he hit the foam, and the floor was wet, and he just went, gone, slid under the foam, vanished.
Jeez.
It was more scary than it was funny. It's funny later on to think about it, but at the time it was like, I mean, he was a lovely old guy, so you really didn't want him to get hurt. He was well into his 60s, I think, at that time. Might have even been 70.
Wow.
Bless him. He did a lot of the episodes for you guys.
Yes, he did. He did more than any other director, I think. Wow. Safe to say. And always you knew you were in the hands of somebody that really understood what was going on.
Nick, did you have a favorite? Was he your favorite director, or did you have another favorite director?
I liked Charlie a lot. He was good to me. He always liked to work with me. I liked Ray Austin because Ray was my kind of guy. You know, he was a stunt man, and I would work out with a lot of the stunt men. I just had a real soft spot for Ray. I don't think I ever had a problem with any director on the show. I liked them all.
Yeah.
Whether there was any directors specifically that I wanted to work with more. Peter Medak,
Yes.
I really liked him. I thought he was very creative and a smart man. And he cared about making the episode work and making it more like a feature film than an episode of a television show.
I've commented to Warren about his direction, because he did the two episodes that that he did, Space Warp and the Sand Spectre. Now the one that he did was the one with Ken Hutchinson and Carolyn Seymour. They were the guest stars in the show, but his choices for like camera angles, he would do these like, almost like an aerial shot looking down, and then he would photograph certain angles, or he would shoot the camera up. It was just very creative. He just seemed like a very creative process.
He was a smart guy, and he was married to Carolyn Seymour. So
yes,
that's why she was in the episode with him.
Yeah,
that's right. That's right.
Yeah, she became quite a friend of mine. She lived in Kensington, I think, or I remember seeing her once, and she said, "Oh, come on over," you know. And but she and Peter had broken up by then. She was a good actress. The film industry is very hard, and a lot of marriages, people coming and going and being swept away. He was, I forget, was he German or was he Russian? Medak. Medak. I don't know where he came from, but he was very
Hungarian.
Very European.
I'm recalling maybe he may have been Hungarian.
That sounds right.
Coming to mind for him.
Yes, that sounds right.
Carolyn Seymour actually eventually made it over to North America herself, because she made a couple of Star Trek appearances like you did, Nick. Would that have been after her and Peter split, you know, or maybe?
Yes, I didn't do any episodes of Star Trek until well after I'd finished Space 19.
Right, yeah, like virtually 20 years.
I would imagine the same thing would have applied. There were no Star Treks being made when we started Space 1999.
No, years later.
They came later.
Yeah.
So the answer to that is, yeah, it would have been later.
Yeah.
But again, you know, she was an English actress that I had some small contact with in England in my earlier years. And then I think she's been to America as well at one point in time. I saw her.
She was, yeah.
We're ships that pass in the night, you know, actors. You get together on an episode or a film or a play or whatever it might be, and you're more often than not thrown into very emotional situations in the show where your character might be in love with the other person or planning to murder them or whatever it is. And actors have to take on that dilemma instantly, the love or the loyalty or the desire to conquer, whatever it is. And it can have quite profound effects on you, you know. And what I do know is that I've nearly always had very good relationships with actors that I've worked with. And I come home and I'm raving to Hazel about how lovely Ian McShane might be or whatever, and the fun I was having with him. And then the following week, I never mentioned him. She said, "Well, what's happened to your best mate, Ian McShane?" And I said, "Hazel, he was only in one episode. How was that? But you were talking about him as if he was your best friend." I said, "Well, during the time we worked together, I really felt like we were best friends." Yeah. Actors do that. You know, you recognize, it's like playing tennis with a really good tennis player. If you're a very good tennis player and you know about the artistry of hitting a ball well across the net and backhand, forehand, whatever it might be, and getting a rally going, and how much the audience is enjoying the best that you can offer them. Very, very similar to acting. You know, when you get in the groove and the scene is working well, particularly if it's a theater production, you're doing it night after night, you get to the point where it just becomes thrilling to have that experience night after night. And then, of course, you have the terrible, or I won't say terrible, but you have the awkward situation. It's all over. The episode is over, the show is over, you all go home, you go on to other things. You may never see that actor again. Or if you do, it might be like with me and Shane. I work with him and then I don't see him for 5 years, and then suddenly there we are together again. G'day, mate, you know. When I did Murder, She Wrote for Angela Lansbury, I played in the first series of Murder, She Wrote, I played a Scotland Yard detective. So I was frightfully sort of very British upper crust police officer. And about 3 years later, she split from the production company of Murder, She Wrote. The producers didn't want her husband to keep working on the show with her. And it was her show, you know, so she said, no, screw that. She wouldn't have said that because Angela was too much of a lady. But she would have, she dropped the producers and put her husband in charge. And she did a whole new series of Murder, She Wrote with her husband as the main producer and her son being one of the main directors. And so I came back about 4 years after the episode that I did as the inspector in Scotland Yard. I came back as the episode that they shot in Australia, or supposedly in Australia. And I played the Lord Mayor of a little country town. And my character is very influential in that town and kind of got a little bit too much power. Not so much as Donald Trump, but nonetheless, he was a bit of a scoundrel, this guy. And he in fact murders his own. We didn't deliberately murder his son. They had a falling out and they were fighting in a stable. And you know, sometimes the stable booths have got planks of wood across the door so that all the straw and the manure does not flood out into the rest of the stable. So the horse has to step over that. Well, in this sequence of arguing with my son, I push him hard and he falls backwards onto this plank, and hits him in the back of the neck and breaks his neck. And so I wind up killing my son. But my character is such a rogue. Instead of just confessing that he'd had an argument with his son and the boy fell down and it was an accident, I string him up with a rope and pretend that he committed suicide because his neck was broken. And that would happen if you hanged yourself as well. But Angela Lansbury's character, of course, worked it all out and she gets her man. But I remember when I came on to do that episode, the reason I'm telling you that is that I hadn't seen her for about 4 years. And I remember coming on the set and I was going to be playing an entirely different character. So I didn't think she'd remember me. And as I walked up towards her to see her, she got up from the chair. She was saying, "Nikki, darling, welcome back." She put her arms out. And I said, "You remember me?" She said, "Of course, darling. How could I forget you?" Now, I was incredibly flattered at the time. And then I thought to myself, I wonder if when she brings an actor back on the show, she said to her son and her husband, "If I've worked with these people, you must tell me so that I don't make a fool of myself." And so did they say, now the actor playing the Australian boss of this big sheep station is Nick Tate, and you worked with him when he played Inspector Lestrade in Scotland Yard. Oh, yes, of course. You know. And then I walk up, she goes, "Nikki, darling." Now, I don't know whether that went paid, if it was just her, because contrary to that, she is such a bright woman and was such a on the ball, you know. She didn't miss a trick. It's very possible she did remember me and liked me, and that's I shouldn't even have second guessed and thought, well, I wonder if somebody's going, now you know this actor. It's Nick Tate. Who? Nick Tate. You know? Oh, Nicky, darling. Who, who, who knows? I don't know. I just like the story, you know.
That's a great story. I
Yeah.
think she remembered you.
I think so too. I agree. Very
Um,
nice.
and I remember she told me there's another funny side to that story. I had big scenes to do with her. By this stage, as I said, because she'd done 5 years on Murder, She Wrote, and they wanted to do another 5 years, it was going to be 10 years in all. In fact, I think she did 9 or 10. It was a very long period of time for an actor to be in a television series. And very lucrative, too, when you do a show that long. Anyway, why am I telling you this? When she has to explain to me in the end, it nearly always gets revealed that she then tells the person who's been trying to pull the wool over her eyes that she really knows that they are the murderer. Well, there's that scene that had to be done with her, and it was a lot of dialogue from her, and I'm interrupting her and denying it and so forth. Anyway, we shoot this scene. She says to me, darling, you have to understand. She said, I bought a house in Ireland. And she said, now this series is my series. My husband's a producer, director, and so forth. She said, I only do 3 days a week on the show. She said, I work on Tuesday, Wednesday, and Thursday. On Thursday night, I leave here, I go to Heathrow Airport, and I fly to Ireland. And I do the show in Ireland. I mean, I have a house in Ireland, and then I stay in Ireland Friday, Saturday, Sunday, Monday, and on Tuesday morning I fly back from Ireland, and I shoot the rest of the show on those 3 days. So forgive me when I'm doing this scene with you. She said I'm going to have to leave as soon as I've finished. So she does this scene, and where she's right next to the camera. We're both in close up. She's there and I'm here, and I do the full scene with her. And the director says cut, and she says goodbye, Nicky, darling. It's wonderful working with you again. I'm off to Ireland. Forgive me. And she's gone.
Wow.
And I'm thinking, well, are they going to come round on me? And so then the director says, yes, we're coming round on Nick, and bring in the stand-in. And then they bring in this woman who from behind looked like her, same, wearing the clothes and everything.
Yeah.
And I have to do the scene with this woman. I'm in close-up now, reacting as I did with her. But this woman didn't look like Angela. She didn't sound like Angela. She wasn't even an actress. She was a stand-in. And she read the lines rather like, oh, well, you have, now you've been a naughty boy, haven't you? You know, and I thought, this is impossible. So I said to the director, can I just speak with you for a minute? I said, is it absolutely necessary to have her there? Oh, well, yes, Nick, it's the reverse angle shot. So you were in her shot, she has to be in yours. I said, well, could you not have her say the lines? Since the back of her head. You don't want her to say the lines? I said, no, because she doesn't sound anything like Angela. She hasn't got any of her sparkle and the little looks that she gave me. I remember what she was doing, and that's what I want to remember, because I have to react to that.
Yeah.
And this woman's not giving that to me.
No,
it's not against her.
She was a distraction, though. Yeah.
Yeah. So the director was very kind. He said, yes, of course. And then he actually pulled in past her. Once he established her there, he just slid past her slightly so she wasn't even on frame. And I just did all my lines to the corner of the lens cap. And I'd done, Martin taught me that kind of thing. He said, you know, as long as you don't look down the spout, he said, you can get away with murder. And he said, and I like my fellow actors when I'm doing close-ups with them to be right on the edge of frame so that I'm virtually looking almost into the lens. But of course, I'm just looking past it at them. He was very, very well schooled in the art of the camera lens.
Hmm.
And he taught me a lot.
A lot of technique and things. I mean, and I guess if you're watching, going when we go, I'm just thinking about what you're saying and watching not even not Space 1999, but just different productions and watching how actors position themselves or how you never see somebody looking directly into the camera like we're doing like right now. It just, or like I'm doing right now, it just doesn't happen. There's always, like you said, there's this angle, and you're having these conversations, but it's never like direct. It's always on like
there's a reason sometimes why you can look straight down the lens. It's for an effect, and or if it's accusatory, or if it's you're scared of something, or you're really trying to visualize something, you're trying to look at something. Sometimes the director will want you to look right into the lens, but it's very rare.
Yeah.
Very rare, because it's somehow or other, it breaks that fourth wall thing.
Yeah.
I was just going to say, in those cases where it's intentional, that's the perfect time.
Yeah.
Yes. Yeah. But that's, yeah.
I remember hearing a story about Sigourney Weaver on the very first Alien movie being so young and inexperienced that Ridley Scott had to constantly remind her not to look directly at the camera lens.
Really?
Wow.
I'm surprised. I would have thought she was around, but some directors have said to me, Nick, don't look down the spout. And I'm not looking down the spout. I'm looking very fine on, like Martin taught me, because that's what Martin did all the time. He didn't want to be off over here. He wanted to be right there.
Yeah.
Nailing it, because then the audience feel like he's looking at me.
Yeah.
It's like when you go into you particularly see this in airports. They'll have a big picture of somebody, an actor or a pilot or somebody who's talking at you, or you can see he's in the midst of something and he's looking right at you. And as you walk past that billboard, his eyes seem to follow you around. Have you ever had that experience? And you know how and why that is? Because the cameraman that he was working with said, I want you to look right down the spout. So the picture of him, he's looking down the spout, those eyeballs, wherever you stand watching him, he's looking at you, or you're looking at him, and you feel like he's looking right back at you. It's a very interesting technique.
I love that term, Nick, looking down the spout, though. I love that.
Down the spout, yeah. Oh, yeah, all the old film terms.
Yeah, that's so cool. But and then also, I mean, we've talked about this before, but it's just that with Martin, he always had that one side that he always wanted to be photographed on, and if he was photographed on the other side, it was few and far between. And from what I'm said is, you look at him on the one angle, he looks like almost, they would say, 10 years younger than if he was on the other angle.
He hated his right profile.
Yeah,
he hated this side of his face. He always wanted to be shot there. Left side. Straight on's all right, but if it's in any angle at all, it's got to be this left side.
Yeah.
Now, the funny part about it was that I had a bit of a hang up about the right side of my face, because the director had told me in Australia, he said to me, you've got a good side, a really good side of your face, and then you've got a very ordinary side. I said, really? He said, yeah. He said, your left side's your good side. And I went, oh. So then I wanted that. I wanted to be on the left side of my face. Well, Martin totally cured me of that, because he always had me on his right. And I had to look at him.
Right.
He's looking at me, and you're getting the left side of his face, which is exactly what he wanted. And I'm looking at him, and I'm showing the right side. He cured me instantly, because there was nothing I could do about it. I had to do it. People still liked me, and I got used to looking at it and going, there's nothing wrong with the right side of my face. But Martin Ray Austin got really upset with him one time, because Martin had to walk into a scene, and instead of just walking in and talking, he came in from left to right, which meant he was now on the right side of his face. He walked past me to the other side of me, put his hand on my shoulder and spun me around. So again, he was on the left side of his face. And Ray said, cut, Martin, don't do that. Just walk up to him and talk to him. Martin went, Ray. And Ray went, oh, come on, Martin. And Martin was really pissed with Ray for doing that. Ray told me later, and Martin said, don't you ever do that to me again, not in front of all these people, because he didn't want them to know. But Martin told me that's why he did it, because he liked me and he trusted me and he felt he was teaching me stuff, and he was. You know, he was a very clever actor. I've just got to get a little snack here.
No problem. We're almost out of time here anyway, boys. We should probably wrap up. We really appreciate you coming on, Nick.
Nick, I was saying the last, in fact, when you were on with Warren, I actually had to do a brief. I had to relieve myself for a moment, but I was saying to Warren that I never did that before on a broadcast, and I said the longest broadcast that I ever did, and I was plugging my show, Roy's Tie-Dye Sci-Fi Corner, was when I had you on a few years ago, and you were on for like 4 hours and 48 minutes, and it was yeah. In fact, it was funny because Ross, my co-host Ross, he wasn't on that night, but he saw that we were, you were on, and we were discussing and everything, and he was in the chat. And then what happened was he went out to dinner and he came back and he said, I wonder how everything went with Roy and Nick. And then he went on. He said, oh my God, they're still on.
Yeah, well, I'm like that at conventions too. You get me up in conventions. If people want to sit and ask me questions for hours, I just go on and on and on.
It's wonderful though, because I mean we've learned so much, and you're so detailed with everything, with your experiences and just sharing the information, and it's just always so wonderful to hear. So we really appreciate that. So thank you for that.
Well, I'm a bit annoyed with myself because I did say, and I've said it several times because folks do compliment me like you have just now about how interesting they find the stories of the show and the career and so on. And they say, please, are you going to write a memoir? And I go, yes, I am. Well, I've been saying yes, I am for 10 years. Or I've probably been saying it for 40 years, if the truth be known. And I still haven't done it. And whenever I've got a spare moment and I'm doing nothing, Hazel says to me, why aren't you writing your memoirs?
Well, we got all this recorded material, Nick, so it's at your disposal to tap into that, for all the interviews and everything. So it's something you really should consider.
Wow. I think one of the best ways to do it is to do it like we're doing now, is to questions and answers, and then transcribe that into a narrative, where I can take out the questions, or I could even have the questions.
Yeah, absolutely.
And then Roy Belquist said to me, and Warren Fredrickson said to me, what about your dog, or whatever. Why not? I don't necessarily want to write a book about a little boy that was a child of active parents, but that's the truth. I was, and I find it very hard to start the story of my life unless I actually say how and where I came to be an actor, because my parents were actors, and their parents were actors, and so I've got this sort of history, this kind of pedigree of the acting business around me. And anyway,
I think it's a really good idea though, fellas. I mean because between Roy and myself, we'd have a lot of source material we could go through easily.
I kind of want to write an autobiography, but I suppose there's nothing wrong with having somebody being like an editor, or like a prompter, somebody that says, you told me once that you got peed on by a lion. What was it all about? Well, that wasn't my story. My mother was peed on by a lion, but that's another story. And it's hard to say that without people going, you have to tell me now, how'd your mother get peed on by a lion? She was
right. No, I just meant more for reference. Like we'd have a literal archive of different shows and interviews we've done down through the years that we could tap into.
Well, you know what? It might not be a bad idea if you wanted to go through a lot of that stuff and find the questions that created the impetus for me to tell that story. That could be the beginning of me finding a way to actually tell the stories again. And this time, really, I don't want it to be a visual thing.
No.
Although a lot of actors do, then if they've written their autobiography, they then read it
Right.
onto. I think it was Ewan McGregor. I think he's done it.
Mhm.
A friend of mine said that he's written an autobiography, and then they asked him to read it on the BBC, and he did.
Oh, they
Wow.
did like an audiobook for him.
Yeah.
Yeah. Hmm.
Anyway,
Interesting.
It's
Interesting.
definitely.
Well,
I do have things to do now. So
Yeah, I was just going to say we should probably wrap up. I wanted to leave you with one other thought, if I could, though, in relation to Los Angeles, and of course, in September it's going to be very, very virtually in your own backyard, and we would like to, as we did in London, it worked really, really well. We would like to extend the invite to any of your family who would maybe like to come along or accompany you throughout the weekend. Tom, Hazel, of course, that would be lovely. Any of the grandkids, yeah, they're all
Jesse.
welcome. Yeah.
well, thank you. I can tell you that I have families that don't want to be involved in this, but you never know. I mean, Jessie did come to one,
Yeah.
and she was fascinated by it all, and she still, even now, occasionally it'll come up that she will say, "Oh God, I remember that," and she was fascinated by it. What is strange is that neither my son nor my daughter have ever watched the television series, as far as I know.
Yeah.
They've seen sporadic episodes, but they've not gone, "Oh yeah, I can remember," like you guys. They can remember chapter and verse.
Yeah.
I think they could care less, quite frankly. And I brought them up to not be starstruck and
Right.
feel that that's important.
Well, no, but please pass it along. It was a really fun dynamic in London. Like, if you recall, Anton brought his two daughters one night. Catherine Shell had her granddaughters there, I think, at one point, and it was I think a fascinating look for some of those family members. So please pass it along.
Well, you know what? I will tell you that I will try to do it, because
Yeah.
I think that I would like for them to see the adoration of this show and we that were in it, because it's very much part of my past and part of the fabric of who I am. And later on in life, they may go, "Well, there was all this side to Nick's, Grandpa Nick's career that we didn't know about." Well, here's an opportunity for them to know about it.
Yeah.
Absolutely. Absolutely. Yeah.
All right.
Could be a lot of
Guys,
fun. Yeah. Yeah.
always a
no,
pleasure to see you both.
Thank you so much, Nick. It's always a pleasure, and looking forward to speaking to you soon. And again, I'll extend the invitation. I want to have you on Roy's Tie-Dye Sci-Fi Corner again in the near future as well, too. So.
Okay, I got to say, I really think that I can clearly see you're a healthier man than you were. I didn't know that you were sick before, and you didn't know either.
No.
But just the kind of the brightness about you right now, it's clearly different.
So you're really picking up on something different than when you last saw me, really? Even?
Yes, I am.
Okay.
It's just a kind of I mean, it's still you, but there's a kind of brightness and a clarity about you that is, I would say you're younger than you were when I last saw you. You know?
No, well, I appreciate that. Thank you.
And
yeah.
and you look finer as well, doesn't he?
Yeah, I lost a little weight.
No, he does, and I'm just a grumpy old curmudgeon.
No, you look. Isn't he beautiful? Roy, look at him.
Yeah.
Come on, tell me how beautiful I am. Go on.
You're lovely, Nick.
Okay, guys. Bye.
Thank you so much again. Yep. You
Take care. Nick.
Lovely.
All the best.
You well. God bless. Thank you.
Can you cut me off? Bye.
Yeah, we'll take you out. Bye-bye.
Yeah. Bye-bye. Oh, it was really nice. It's always a pleasure to have Nick on.
Wasn't that fantastic?
Absolutely. I didn't realize that I didn't look healthy before. Now I know I,
Oh,
lost some
no, no,
weight.
no. Don't take it like that.
No, no,
It's
no.
just that I mean, we're all so happy that you got through your ordeal there, Roy, with so much ease, and you bounced right
Uh,
back.
I don't know
You,
if I don't know if ease is the right word, but I appreciate the compliment.
but I mean, like, what's it been? Barely a month, and you're already back
No,
doing
it's it's
the
it's
shows and
six and a. I'm not that I'm counting, but I am counting. It's actually literally 45 days since the surgery. It was 45 days ago. It's 6 weeks, 6.5 weeks. So,
yeah.
but no, I do feel for the most part good. I'm still sore, still healing, but yeah, no,
You're
it's
walking lots. You're getting your exercise each day, which is great.
yeah, no, it's I didn't even think I was going to be able to walk. But that's a whole story. But we've talked about it. But anyway, it's appreciated. Thank you for that, Warren. And
And
I appreciate Nick's compliments too.
absolutely, it was very nice to talk to him and catch up with things and see that I mean those events there back in um, December and January were traumatic for so many people, but it's just there again. I mean, him and his entire family just sort of well, okay, let's get on with it. All right, it's
Yeah,
sure it was an obstacle, but they're getting by. They're making the best of things, and it's onward and upward for them. So nice to see.
yeah, absolutely. I mean, it's you talk about recovery. So it's
Right, yeah, I mean, that was a major upheaval and life change for all of them.
yeah, definitely. But yeah, so this wraps up Space Brain episode 20. So we've got 4 episodes in for the first season. So for
Yeah,
those
thank
that
you
are
so much,
thinking,
and keep watching, and we have just had a whirlwind, of course, Roy, with all these announcements all week to do with the convention, and
absolutely,
I'll
there's a
just
lot of
take
exciting stuff coming on.
30 seconds, and it's the running across the ticker, so we're doing the Breakaway Day international simulcast,
Yeah.
to several countries all over the world, and
Now
doing
wait, before you go on, I don't mean to cut
sure,
you off, but I
no,
did mean to cut you off because you cut me off in the beginning.
no,
No, I'm just kidding. Just kidding. So let's tell the audience about that. So what does that mean, Warren, in regards to that? What in regards to now? This is going to be the first time this has been done, but what is the connection with that? And the word connection really applies. So that's interesting. So what are the details of that? Share with us.
Oh, well, okay, and listen, and you and I go back many years with this whole live streaming broadcasting idea with your show, with what we did with the two virtuals. Now we're doing on this very podcast. We've spent a lot of time behind the controls, as it were. So what we've come up with for this breakaway day, for anybody out there who hadn't heard, is a unique way to uh, bring together not only the fans, but actually for the first time, fan events, different fan conventions and groups and gatherings that are happening simultaneously this breakaway day weekend. The biggest ones being in Los Angeles, of course, and then our friends over in Italy, Modena, Italy, are running SpaceCon 7 that very same weekend. So our intention is to link and cross-link. You see what I did there? Uh,
Yeah. Do you know the
uh,
rest of the quote?
by linking and cross-linking the anti-gravity towers.
You got it.
Yeah, okay,
Good
okay.
enough.
Nerds.
Yep. And that was from Ring Around the Moon, I believe.
Eh.
Just, just kidding.
So no, but
A
I
thousand
think
for
it's
Black
very
Sun, please.
yeah. No, very exciting because it'll be actually everybody will be on screen at the same time, and we'll be able to share our guests and guest interviews back and forth. With the Italians in particular, we've worked with them, and of course, Roy, Silvana, their main translator.
Yep.
So we'll be able to field questions back and forth between the two events, which is very exciting. So, for example, Nick Tate, Yasko, who will be in attendance on our side, we'll be able to communicate with the Italians. And in return, and here was one other announcement we're going to have in the next couple of days. Of course, we automatically will have access. Everybody in Los Angeles, drum roll please, will be interviewing Johnny Garco and Carla Romanelli, who will
There
be
you go.
in attendance in Italy at the same time. So,
Which is
so
really cool. Very, very cool.
yeah,
No,
yeah,
I just wanted to expand upon that because I think we're kind of mentioning it, but I thought it would be really cool just to let our audience know the details and exactly what that entails, because this is something that is being done for the very first time. And it's again, as you said, it's linking or cross-linking these two events together in different venues, different countries. However, it's kind of like a family event, so it's very cool and very exciting, and it's going to be taking place along breakaway weekend, or breakaway day, as we like to call it. So just in that time frame. So yeah, very, very exciting.
Yeah, very, very cool, very cool. We're very pleased. So, and more announcements to come in the next few days. So everybody keep watching, and thanks for your support.
Yeah, we really appreciate it. There's a lot of behind the scenes activity that has been going on in planning this convention, as everybody knows, because there's just so much to do. And it's hard to believe only literally 7 months ago was the I was going to say the Space 1999 event that took place in London. It was London 1999, and that was literally 7 months ago. So we are at the 5 month mark and just about there, because today is now, well, with the broadcast of this, will be April 6th. So literally 5 months away. So if you haven't marked your calendars, definitely do so. We're very excited about Los Angeles 1999. So
For sure, for sure. Okay, well, thank you all. Thank you, Roy.
Thank you, Warren, and thank you, everybody.
Very fun show with Mr. Nick Tate and Roy. Lovely to see you as always, and to everybody,
well.
everybody out there. We will see you on the next episode of Space 1999. This episode, which will be,
drum roll, please, The Infernal Machine, episode number 21. And which Leo McKern was in, and was Australian, and also a friend of Nick Tate. And I think, actually, if I remember, I think he was a friend of, even more so, Nick's father. I know there was definitely that connection there. So especially with their heritage. But yeah, Leo McKern, and that's going to be a fun episode to talk about. And that's one of those episodes as a child, watching 1999 when that episode was on. I was like, but as an adult, it is such an awesome episode. It is such a deep episode, and that's my teaser for right now.
And I'll just cap that off with another fine example of the set design of year one and the expansive reach of what they did on a small little camera lens, television camera lens, to make it look so theatrical and so worldly. The interior of the Gwent set was just remarkable.
So vast.
Yeah.
So that's the pleasant 4-letter word for tonight. Vast. Anyway, thanks.
All right.
Thanks, Warren.
Thanks, everybody. We'll see you next time. Okay.
Take care.
Bye-bye.